During school lockdowns, it was a typical boring day in calculus. Only it was Friday, 7th period, meaning the week was almost over and spring break would finally be upon us. Everyone was getting antsy in their seats, and I could tell. We didn't have a test that day, unlike many of my friends with other teachers. So our teacher decided to start playing games with us on sporcielli.com. He was a very laid-back teacher like that. As we were doing some brand logo quiz on Sporkle, I remember the exact moment it happened. Right after my friend answered a question, Adidas, the dean's voice came through the loudspeaker. He sounded panicked and frantic as he told all the teachers this was not a drill and to go into lockdown. I actually got chills and goosebumps on my arms as our usually laid-back teacher also seemed panicked. He ran to turn off the lights and ushered us to the back corner of the room. We all sat in silence for about 2 minutes, and then the usual buzzing from a panel in the back of the room ceased, indicating the school must have cut all the power. We all looked at each other, realizing this must be serious. A few more minutes of waiting later, we heard a man screaming at the top of his lungs, coming down the hallway. 2 girls in the class actually started crying, which made all of us even more scared. As the screaming got closer to the classroom, the lunatic-sounding man started banging on the lockers while screaming, "I'll kill all of you." It was at that moment I started to fear for my life. My teacher shushed us as we all looked at each other, gauging our peers' reactions. The banging then moved from the lockers to our classroom door. One of the crying girls screamed, "No!" The banging on the door only grew worse as the man started screaming, "Open up!" 2 of the girls in the class were crying out loud now. It felt like an eternity that the man was pounding at the door, but eventually, he finally continued down the hallway, screaming like a mentally insane person until we could not hear him anymore. I'd say 10 minutes later, though it felt like half an hour given the situation, the dean came back on the loudspeaker explaining the situation, which was surprising for him to do. He explained that some apparently mentally unstable person entered the building and assaulted the woman sitting at the front desk, causing her to flee the building screaming. The staff wasn't sure if the man was armed or not. This was before the school had cameras or could afford proper security, so the school was wide open to something like this happening. The staff had done a sweep of all the hallways and classrooms and couldn't find him. So the dean instructed the teachers to resume teaching, but to keep all the doors locked and not let any students leave for any reason. The most disturbing part, however, is that one of the janitors working the night shift found the man sleeping in one of the storage closets near the back end of the school. According to rumors spread by my peers, sticking out of his pocket was a knife, not a gun. The janitor must have done something stupid to wake him up, like leaving the closet door open, because by the time a police officer could arrive on the scene, the man was gone. My entire class, as far as I know, to this day has no idea if this man was ever found, but I like to think that right now, he's being given the proper help that he needs. A few days later, however, strange things started happening. Some students reported seeing a shadowy figure lurking around the school grounds at night. Objects in the classrooms were found moved or missing. The staff tried to dismiss these incidents as pranks, but the unsettling feeling among us persisted. It was only when a teacher discovered a chilling message etched into a desk, "I'm still here," that we realized the nightmare wasn't over. We never saw the man again, but the fear he instilled in us lingered long after. When I was 16 and in my junior year of high school, I had 9 periods in a school day. 5th period was lunch, followed by my astronomy class, held in one of the 2 basement classrooms. My high school was massive, with 3 floors that couldn't accommodate all the classes. So they converted an old janitorial area in the basement into 2 extra classrooms. The basement was eerie when no one else was around. Lacking intercoms or loudspeakers, no classes were scheduled down there for first period announcements. This area was known as the chamber, and students often sought classes there for the air conditioning and easier coursework. It even had its own bathroom. One day, we had a quiz in astronomy. I usually finished first since I found the class easy. After completing my quiz, I texted my friend, JJ, who was in the other basement classroom, to meet me in the bathroom. He agreed, and soon we were both there, joking around. Suddenly, JJ checked his phone and said he received a text about the school going into lockdown. We exchanged grins, realizing our teachers didn't know we had left the classrooms, giving us free reign of the school during the lockdown. We decided to sneak upstairs to explore. As we opened the basement door, we were surprised to find the hallways pitch black, the only light coming from the lobby doors. This was unusual, as the hallway lights were typically left on during lockdowns. Feeling uneasy, JJ stepped further into the hallway, and I followed. He pointed down the hall and asked,
"Who is that?"
Emerging from the darkness was a man. At first, we thought he might be a teacher, but as he approached, we realized he was dressed like a bum, not like any staff member.
"Let's go."
I whispered urgently to JJ, and we hurried back down to the basement. We noticed both classroom doors were shut and lights off. To avoid making a scene, we hid in the bathroom. I turned off the light, and we both squeezed into the corner stall. The room was eerily silent, except for our breathing and the occasional drip from the sink. Suddenly, the bathroom door creaked open, and light from the hallway spilled in momentarily before the door shut again, plunging us back into darkness. We could hear heavy breathing, as if someone was out of breath. JJ whispered in my ear,
"You have to crawl out through the other stalls."
His whisper, although quiet, seemed loud in the silence. The heavy breathing stopped, and the person started pushing against our stall door.
"Go."
I whispered urgently, and we both crawled under the sidewall to the next stall, then the next, and finally out to the other side of the bathroom. The person was now banging on the stall door. We bolted for the door, and as light filled the room again, we saw the man from upstairs in the corner. We sprinted to JJ's classroom, where the teacher led us in quickly. JJ explained everything as the teacher locked the door, mentioning he saw a knife sticking out of the man's pocket. I was shocked, having missed it, but I went along with JJ's story. The other students, who would normally laugh at such a scene, looked genuinely concerned. A sudden bang on the door made everyone jump. We saw the man through the door's window, trying the knob and peering in with a deranged look. After a few moments, he walked away angrily. We spent over an hour in silence, the teacher occasionally questioning us with a worried expression. Eventually, someone from upstairs called, instructing us to single-file walk out of the building, where we were met by police. We described the man to the cops and the dean. One of the officers patted me on the back before sending us home. The school installed cameras and ramped up security after this incident. It never made the news, so we never found out if they caught the man. I'm convinced he intended to kill us in that bathroom stall. Before being taken on as a full-time teacher at a high school a little outside of Austin, Texas, I was a substitute. My main subject area was math, but I would sub for a multitude of classes. Being a sub meant I often had more off periods since I worked on an as-needed basis. One day started like any other. I had 4 math classes to sub for, including geometry and algebra. I usually enjoyed subbing for science classes because the teachers would have me show an educational documentary and hand out a question sheet to be graded later. But with math, I had to actually teach the material. I arrived at school and picked up the keys from the front office for the 2 classrooms I'd be using, both in the math hallway downstairs to the far left of the school. My schedule for the day was something like periods 2, 3, 7, and 9. I had already taught the first 2 classes, so I had about an hour and a half before the 7th period. I stayed in the classroom from my last class since it was empty for the next 2 periods. I was doing a mix of work-related and non-work-related things on my laptop. When the second bell rang and period 6 began, I headed to the teacher's lounge at the back of the school. The teacher's lounge was usually empty except for a few subs. It was located in the back corner of the school near a separate back entrance, only accessible with teacher ID cards. I set my belongings down and was about to relax when I heard knocks at the back exit door. I walked out to the hall and saw a clean-cut man with gray short hair, a button-down shirt tucked into khakis, and a black jacket. He looked like a teacher. He saw me through the glass, smiled, and asked me to open the door. He claimed to be Mr. Abrams, a teacher who forgot his ID. I opened the door for him, and he quickly walked past me with his hand in his right pocket. He seemed to know where he was going, heading in the direction of the math hallway. Suddenly, I felt uneasy. I rushed to my laptop and pulled up the staff directory, but there was no Mr. Abrams listed. I called the front office and reported a potential intruder. The school issued an immediate lockdown, sending an automatic distress call to lock all doors and turn off all lights. I heard a commotion in the math hallway. As I got closer, I could hear a man screaming and banging on a door, yelling, "Maria, open up! I know you're in there." Maria was the first name of the teacher I was subbing for. It seemed he was banging on one of the classrooms I had used earlier. Within minutes, the police surrounded the school, entered from multiple entrances, and detained the man. I didn't witness it happen as I wasn't allowed past the police. The teacher, whose name I changed for privacy, had called out sick that week. The man was her ex-husband. Rumor had it that Maria did something horrible to him. Given his actions, it seemed likely he came to the school with harmful intentions. No one knew where Maria went to hide from her ex or the full story, but she didn't return to work for months. I thank God that no one was hurt or killed. It haunts me to think that I was the one who let him in, to something that will forever weigh on my conscience. I attend university in Massachusetts, currently living off campus in my final year here, but this took place when I was a freshman living in the dorms. Freshmen are on the first floor of every building on campus. This was during the winter semester. It was a freezing cold day, and I had just finished up my last class around 5 p.m. Our professor let us out really early. It was already dark out as I was walking back to my dorm. On my way back, I received a text from the university. The text started in all capitals. "Attention all faculty and students. Seek immediate shelter." A suspicious man was reported on campus approaching women with crude, threatening comments, claiming he had a gun. The text mentioned that university police were aware and on full alert. My heart raced as I quickened my pace to get back to my dorm building. I kept glancing over my shoulder, feeling paranoid. Suddenly, I noticed someone walking not far behind me. It was a man in a huge winter coat. I couldn't gauge his age or appearance clearly in the dim light, but he could have just been a student. The text didn't specify the person's race, so I tried to calm my nerves. As I reached my building, I swiped my student ID to get in. The first door shut behind me, and I hurriedly opened the second door. That's when a loud bang on the first door made me jump. It was the man who had been behind me. He was asking if I could let him in. I was about to ignore him, but then he pleaded, saying, "Please, I'm cold." I turned to look at him, and he had a desperate expression on his face. I asked,
"Do you live here? What's your room number?"
He said he did and claimed he was on the third floor, but he ignored my repeated requests for his room number. Suspicious, I said, "Sorry, I can't let you in." That's when he started saying vulgar, horrible things that I don't want to repeat. He began licking the glass and commenting on what he planned to do to me if he got inside. In disgust, I ran to my room and slammed the door behind me. Inside, I turned on the lights. My roommate wasn't back yet. I texted my dorm group chat, saying I thought the creepy man the school sent a warning about was at our door. Everyone replied the same thing. "OMG, call university police." I called them immediately, telling them about the creepy man. When they asked if he was still there, I walked to the window to look outside. I screamed at the top of my lungs when I saw him, standing on the other side of the glass, smiling and shaking his head, making a disgusting motion with his tongue. Pleading with the officer on the line, I begged them to send help. The man outside the window suddenly ran off into the darkness. I continued to cry for the police to hurry. When one of them finally arrived at my dorm room, I let him in and described the man in detail. The officer told me to stay in my room for the night and advised me to tell my friends to do the same. An additional text was sent out to all residents of my building. The hunt for that man went on all night, but they never found him. The things he said to me were beyond disturbing. I didn't see a gun, but anything could have been hidden in his massive coat pockets. For the rest of the week, the campus had extra police on duty. Every time I walked back to my dorm, I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the winter cold. The fear lingered, and the image of his twisted smile haunted my dreams.